Hi, and welcome to the second episode of the Ivanti Security Controls introduction. This is the second part of the series on the Blue Turtle YouTube channel. In the previous episode, we did a high-level walkthrough of the console and went through some of the menus and just briefly orientated the user around the console. In this episode, we're going to dive deeper into the feature functionality, and we're going to be performing the patch management functionality, and we're going to be running an agentless operation on a Windows 10 device. So let's dive straight into it. So how do you start? As previously, everything is very clearly indicated on the console and very in a walk-through type approach. So as you can see, we've got patch management, which we're going to cover today. In another episode, we'll walk through the application control functionality. But you can see here, I'm asked a question, what do I want to do? And right now I want to do a new agentless operation. So I can click on new agentless operation. So now this will open up the operation I'm going to do. I'm just going to do a test scan and deploy. We discussed machine groups in the first episode, and then I'm just going to tick my test machines. There's just one Windows 10 test device. Over here, you can see what it is I'm going to be doing. So we've got these tabs that you can perform agent inventory, power state, power status, and then IT scripts. So I don't know, I'll go into in another episode briefly about IT scripts, but effectively what it enables you to do is run scripts on the endpoint using Ivanti Security Controls, and it's audited and monitored, and these can replicate the effect across multiple devices. As what we're also able to do an asset inventory scan. So this will scan the hardware and software inventory, which is very useful for an ITAM engagement where we're trying to discover hardware software inventory of environments. And Ivanti Security Controls also has the ability to tap into Windows native power features, and we can control the power state of Windows devices. The use case and not so prevalent in the local market. We have ESCOM. We're still trying to keep the lights on, but in the European and American market for green initiatives and for power saving, if you can imagine in a call center environments where there's certain shift hours and these devices stay on for extended periods, we can actually control the power state and ensure that the devices get switched off when the session ends, and we're not unnecessarily wasting power. But today, as I mentioned, we're going to go and do a patch scan. So you can see here I've got a patch template. There's two options that I can select. There's all patches and then security patch scan. I'm going to select the all patches option. You can see now the scan can take place now or once or on a recurring basis. So we can actually set up a schedule to recur on a certain time during the day, on monthly cadence, or as we all know, the second Tuesday of the month, right? Or maybe the second Wednesday of the month if we want to update after Patch Tuesday. But again, this is all can be set according to requirements. You can see here we also stage the deployment package where you can we're only scanning, we're not staging, or you can immediately stage after. Once we tick the stage deployment, then you can select the deployment package or deployment template that you're going to be using. I'm just going to be using the standard, but we'll go through more detail with regards to the deployment package, deployment template, and what the options are available there. And again, in the case of some SQL servers, if we're applying service packs or patches to SQL servers, especially when you're patching the security controls server, we're able to at least deploy the patches to the device, but that actual patches only get applied at the next reboot without any logon. Being that the application can't be running while the SQL server is being patched. So again, all the options that are available to us, and again, these can have various use cases or various requirements with regards to certain packages or certain applications. So now I've selected all patches to scan. I'm going to kick it off now and click Scan Now. So what the security controls will then do, there's 4 steps that it runs through. The first step is going to update the definitions to make sure that we're running the latest and greatest, and that we've received any updates or any metadata from the vendors with regards to any 0 days or any recently released vulnerabilities. Then once we've updated our definitions, we're going to resolve the machines that we're going to scan. So if this was in an Active Directory, querying Active Directory to bring back the details of the devices that we're going to scan. There's a very small lab environment that I'm running. So the test group servers has just one Windows 10 device in. So at the moment, it's just resolving the machines in that test group. And once the machines have been resolved, then it starts to scan for patches, and you'll see that it's found the one machine in that group. Now it's busy scanning for patches. And while the patches are being scanned for, shouldn't take too long. And then, once we have assessed the device and once we know what vulnerabilities exist in the device, we can then drill in further and actually have a look at the device, have a look at the vulnerabilities, have a look at their severity. We can see pretty much which ones will be most important to patch first. And the idea is, obviously using the red and green, we can assess the current patch status of this device. And you can see it's got 51% patch health. We're also able to see very high level information with regards to the device. And if there was multiple devices, they would be listed below here. The machine name, the IP address, we can see the patches that are missing. We're also able to detect the end of life products, not only on the Windows side, but also on the third-party applications. Because of our Ivanti's engagement with all of the vendors, we're able to get end of life data on those products. We're also able to detect the missing product levels, so the service packs. And potentially this is for Microsoft SQL servers, or even for Windows 10 and Windows 11, where the product levels are indicated as branch updates. So very, very high level, but now we're going to drill in further and actually have a look at the results. So if we click View Results, it'll now bring up a more detailed view of the machine. There's also a tab of machines not scanned. So if I was in a machine group and there were other devices I wasn't able to get to, would we have an error code as well as the reason, the machine, the domain name, and IP address. Ivanti Security Controls has some of its history and its DNA in Shavlik Protect, and that's been around for quite a long time. So the knowledge base and the availability of the information with regards to the errors is very well documented, and the knowledge base is quite extensive. So again, pretty much we'll get the error code and understand why we can't access that device and be able to remedy it. Either the correct ports aren't open for Agentless scan, there's potentially the service not running. So again, these will all be surfaced over here so that we can correct and successfully scan the devices. It's not the case now, though. We didn't have any devices we haven't scanned. We've managed to scan this one device. You can see the machine name Windows 10, IP address, as I mentioned previously, the installed patches, the missing patches, end-of-life products, the actual operating system, and then the assigned credentials from the console that are being used to manage or interrogate this device via WMI. Over here, we are able to now see the patches, and if I had to clear the filter over here, we'd be able to see missing as well as installed patches, and as well as, again, missing product levels. And you can see this has to do with Windows 10 Enterprise, and it's a branch update that can, is indicating this, that we need to move to a later version of the Windows 10 Enterprise. I'm not going to be doing branch updates today just because it's quite a lengthy period. So I'm just going to select one of the other patches that are missing. So we can use the filter over here to filter by values. And you can see I want to select the missing patches. Over here, we can now see all the patches here that are download or are missing for this device. You can see over here, there's a download status. This will download the patch to the console server, and it'll make it available via push to other devices in the network segment that require the same patch. So the idea is to download once and distribute many. So let's have a look at the first missing patch. We could, select all of these, right click and say deploy all missing patches. But for the demo purposes, I just wanted to select one patch and follow through deployment, as well as reboot on the endpoint, as well as the deployment template that's involved, to able to have minimum impact to the end user, but also making sure that we get the patches rolled out in a timely manner. So I right click the patch that I want to deploy, and you can see if I had to download it, I would have just clicked download, but you can see by the download status it has already been downloaded. So I'm going to click deploy selected patch. Now you can see over here, again, just maximize that, deploy to one machine, one patch, deploy how. So what deployment are we going to do? Deployment templates are we going to be using to roll this out? Now, there's a couple that come default out of the box, but it's also possible to create your own deployment templates. And I'm just going to, for the purpose of the demonstration, just show you what options are available within a deployment template. So, we can name and we can give it a description. There's some general features. Again, if you're running agents, if you want to shut down the SQL Server or shut down IIS before deploying, maybe you're doing a SQL patch or SQL update. The send tracking status, that just ensures that while we're rolling the deployment or while we're rolling the patch out, we're receiving feedback in the process to be able to get an update of where the actual deployment is. And again, after, we can automatically clean up the patches should we be conscious of ensuring that there's not hard drive space that's being wasted on the endpoint being filled up with all these patches that are being deployed. Now, some applications require a pre-deployment reboot. So some applications want the device in a clean rebooted state before applying updates. And again, this is possible. By default, it's never reboot before deployment. And I'm going to go into some of the options that would be available, should you want to reboot before deployment. If the user's logged on and active, there's a couple of options that we can do. One of them is alert the user that we're trying to do, that patches are being applied, but only perform the actions when the user logs off. And this is very common in the way Windows patches devices. You'll notice that, when you restart or when you reboot a machine, it'll say, updates being applied. And the reason for this is, to minimize the impact on the end user and to, ensure that the patch is still applied. If there's something really important, like a 0-day or a critical patch that needs to go out, and there's a time constraint on how this must be rolled out, we can also force the action. So we can force the user to log off, or we can force to be restarted, or after a certain time frame or on a specific time frame. You can also see that we're able to show the user what's happening on the endpoint with regards to the countdown, and we're also able to display the message to the end user that I'll show that pops up when we're actually rolling out a patch to the end user. Now, we also, if we have C-level or management, or if you have mature users and they are responsible enough to restart the machine after a patch has been deployed, but you don't want to impact their work. You can allow them to extend the timeout after, in increments of minutes. These two last options I would not recommend, because we don't want the users to be able to cancel anything. Otherwise, patches won't get rolled out, and the device won't get restarted, and the patches won't be applied. So I would steer away from allowing cancel, but we can defer should it be required. I'm going to leave this at alert user and perform action when it logs off, because I've actually have the machine that I'm going to be patching. I actually have the user logged on, and I just want that pop-up to come up to show you what it looks like in the demo. So this is for pre-deployment. I'm going to go back to default and never reboot before deployment, and I'll post deployment. Always reboot after deployment, never reboot after deployment, or reboot when needed. Again, to minimize impact on the customer or the client, we can do the reboot when needed, but it is also, good practice to have it refreshed and restored to make sure that, whatever's written into the operating system is applied correctly. So I would recommend always reboot after deployment, and then we can actually schedule the reboot. If it's servers, there might be a maintenance window when these servers are allowed to be restarted, or there might be a time after a certain hours that the machines can be rebooted. But again, for a maintenance reboot, I normally think there would be a specified date where we can reboot. For the purpose of the demonstration, I'm just going to immediately after installation. And you can see here, the actual power action can be a restart, and it can also be a shutdown. Again, just make sure that if you're in an environment where you don't have access to that server, that we make sure it's a restart and not a shutdown. Otherwise, you sit with having to log a call to have your hosting company actually go to the servers and switch them on. So just be cognizant of that, and make sure that we set at restart. As per the previous window, if the user is logged on and active, force the action after X amount of minutes. In this case, I'm going to alert the user and perform the action when the user logs off. Or we can leave the force action after X minutes so that we can see what that looks like in the pop-up. Again, same as the previous window, there's counter and duration, and again, the user may extend, and I'll show you what that looks like in the pop-up that happens on the endpoint. So let me just make sure that that's fine. And then for email, if you want to have administration, or if you want the email group alerted as to the progress of the patching, or the fact that the patching has happened, or to get a report emailed once the patch has been successfully installed, we're able to select the recipients from here, and you can see we can add a new contact, edit contact, select all. Custom actions, should some of the applications require certain scripts, or if there's requirements for that the application needs before being able to be deployed to, there are some custom actions that we can do, and again, these are again possible to get applied to a template to get rolled out to multiple devices. For distribution servers, so Ivanti Security Controls has the ability to have remote distribution servers. If you have a geographical location that is separate from your head office, and you wish the patches to effectively reside in that geographical location in a alternate network segment, we're able to use distribution servers, and that there's multiple options as to how the servers, or how the agents and the devices will understand which is the distribution server that they should use, based on IP range, or to actually specify the specific servers. We can also then have fallback servers if some of them aren't able to be contacted, and you can see there's other options. If we can't get the patch from the distribution server, there are other options to go and get it from the vendor. So I'm going to stick on console push for this. Ivanti Security Controls, as I mentioned, used to be, it has its history with Shablik Protect, and Shablik Protect at one stage was also acquired or by VMware, I forget the details, but because of this, we do have quite tight integration into the VMware technology. We're able to connect to vCenter and able to connect to ESXi hosts to be able to understand not only the guests that reside on that hypervisor, but also the actual hypervisor itself. So there's also benefits in being able to effectively patch the host as well as the guests. And you can see also in offline, so they don't have to be on and active. We understand, how the guest hypervisor operating system works, and we can actually patch the guests in an offline or an offline state, which ensures that the actual hosts are always kept fully patched. So again, we're able to do some tasks like take pre-deployment snapshots, post-deployment snapshots, and again, Ivanti Security Controls can manage the snapshots. And again, also delete old snapshots to be able to effectively save space, because as we know, VM snapshots and checkpoints can consume quite a lot of data. The use by is just indicating which policies this specific deployment template's used by. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to just select the standard template, and you can see over here it will tell you how it's going to flow. First, the stage deployment package is going to happen now. I'm not going to schedule it. The execute deployment package, we're going to install the patches immediately after staging, but as indicated in the likes of a SQL Server update or a patch where we want to have it in a clean state and we actually want to apply the patches before we actually log onto the environment, you can have it that it installs at the next reboot. But let's do the immediately after staging, and you can see here the disk-based requirements. Obviously, some patches can consume large amounts of disk space. So over here, we're just making the end user aware of the requirements due to the patches that are going to be downloaded. Downloads have already happened, so that's all fine. You can see over here, reboot. So never reboot the target machine before execution, but I want to reboot the target machine after installing patches. Just a quick summary at the bottom as well. The machine, the patch, the download method, it's already happened, the product, and then the KB and the MS and the bulletin ID. You can see here, I'm not running an agent on this device, so this is an agentless deployment from the console to the Windows 10 device. Now I'm going to click deploy. And you can see quickly, it's got two steps here. We're going to download the package and we're going to download the patch, and then we're going to package and deploy it to the endpoint. I'm just going to click into the view tracker, and you can see I'm following it here. Then on this side, the moment the deployment's initializing, the patch would then be copied to the remote site. You can see the files have already been copied. If I have to refresh it again, we're going to go into the execution stage. Just waiting for the files to get copied over. And you can see now we're in the state of executing. We're just waiting for the patch to execute on the endpoint. See here, deployment operation executing. Now we've moved from executing to executed, and you can see it says complete and reboot is scheduled. So what I want to quickly do is just minimize this and bring up my Windows 10 host. You can see over here, the Windows 10 host has been advised that the system is about to be restarted in order to finalize the patch installation. Please save your work. You can see over here, the increment that I allowed saying is I need more time, and I can click on this to extend the timer for X amount of minutes. You can see here the time has now been set to 10 minutes before restart, but I'm actually not going to use that. I'm actually going to say, I'm ready now, please restart. Click restart. So we're about to be signed out. So now the patch has been copied, the patch has been applied. The device is now being rebooted. And you can see so the reboot's been scheduled. Just wait for the machine to get the reboot command, just so that we can see it restart. There it goes. View machines, which is what we're looking at the moment. You can see the device that I've just scanned and the patch that's just been applied. You can also see underneath here, we've got the Windows deployment history, and we can see that this is the patch that's just been rolled out. And you can see that the state is successfully installed. Again, if we have Linux patches, we would be able to see the patches of the devices over here for Linux OS, as well as the Linux deployment history. We also have on this device the Windows software assets, as well as the Windows hardware assets. And you can see, again, it's a virtual host, but we have some BIOS information, some mainboard information, processor, physical memory, network adapter configuration, and again, logical disk, as well as the services running and installed. So again, from a ITAM point of view, from a hardware asset management information, we get a bunch of these hardware asset information. And again, on the software side, the name of the software, the version, the publisher, and the install date. Obviously, it's a lab environment, and it's a vanilla Windows server, so there's not very many applications installed. I'm going to go back to the home screen, and I'm going to wrap. So in today's session, we ran through patch management, where we did an agentless patch of a device. We ran through the view machines, and I showed you what the summary window looks like and how we're also able to get asset information via an asset scan. What we're also able to do is we're able to import CVEs into a patch group. So if you have a vulnerability scanner running in your environment and it's producing a output of CVEs, we're able to import those CVEs into a patch group, and we're able to effectively take the vulnerabilities detected, and with regards to patching, able to then remediate them based on the vulnerability scanner results. In the next session, or in the follow-up session, we're going to have a look at application control and how Ivanti Security Controls can assist with the stopping of ransomware, as well as 0 days, in the way that we manage application control. And in the last part, or the fourth part of the series, we'll go through some of the additional feature functionality and dive into some of the features that really sets Ivanti Security Controls apart. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you found it informative, and I hope you have will be joining in for the next session on application control. Thank you so much for your time. Take care. Goodbye.